You are 67 years old. The house is finally paid off. The kids have moved out. The garage holds 2 luxury cars you once dreamed about. Your watch is worth more than your first year's salary. And yet, tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., your alarm is still going to ring. Because you still have to go to work. Not because you love your job. Because you can't afford to stop. Now rewind. You are 22. Friday afternoon. Your very first paycheck hits your bank account. You stare at the number for almost a full minute. It isn't life-changing, but it feels like freedom. For the first time in your life, someone is paying you for your future. Or at least, that's what you think. You leave work smiling. You stop for coffee. You order the large instead of the small. You tell yourself, I earned it. That sentence will quietly cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 40 years. You just don't know it yet. Because nobody ever ruins their future with one big decision. They ruin it with thousands of tiny rewards that feel completely harmless. And every single one begins with the same sentence. I deserve this. Today's story isn't about poor people. It isn't about rich people. It's about something much more dangerous. It's about people who spend their entire lives trying to look successful without ever becoming financially free. And the terrifying part? Most of them never realize the difference. Until it's too late. Monday morning. Age 22. Your first real office. Gray carpet. White walls. Rows of identical desks. The coffee tastes burnt. Nobody complains. Because everyone is chasing the same thing. A bigger paycheck. A better title. A nicer car. You meet Ethan. Same age. Same position. Same salary. You even start on the same day. People joke that you'll probably retire together. They're wrong. One of you will retire 20 years earlier than the other. Not because one works harder. Not because one gets lucky. Because one makes a decision so small. Nobody notices it. Including him. 3 months later. Your manager congratulates the team. Quarterly bonus. $1,800. The office erupts. People are already talking about what they're buying. A new iPhone. Weekend in Miami. Designer shoes. A gaming PC. You don't even realize it. But something strange happens. Nobody asks, how much can this money become? Everyone asks, what can this money buy today? There's a difference. A massive one. One question builds freedom. The other builds payments. You walk into the parking lot. A brand new black BMW slowly pulls into the employee lot. Everyone turns. Someone whistles. Another guy says, man, one day. The driver steps out. Confident. Smiling. People suddenly know his name. For 5 minutes. He becomes the most important person in the parking lot. You watch quietly. Your 10-year-old Toyota sits 3 rows away. Nobody notices it. Nobody notices you either. Something hurts. Not your wallet. Your ego. That's where almost every expensive financial decision is born. Not from need. From comparison. Because the human brain would rather feel successful today than become successful 20 years from now. That's the trap. And almost nobody escapes it. 2 weeks later. Saturday afternoon. Shopping mall. You weren't planning to buy anything. You just came to look. That's what everyone says. Then you see them. Luxury watches. Leather jackets. Shoes that cost half your paycheck. Bright lights. Perfect displays. Beautiful people wearing beautiful things. Everything whispers the same lie. You'll finally look like you've made it. You stand there longer than you should. You imagine walking into work Monday morning wearing that watch. Driving that car. Holding that phone. People would finally notice you. Maybe they'd even respect you. Maybe you'd respect yourself. That thought is worth billions of dollars every year. Because companies aren't selling products. They're selling identities. And identities are far more expensive than objects. If stories like this make you see money differently, not just earn it differently, subscribe to Dark Capital. Because the biggest financial mistakes don't happen in your bank account, they happen in your mind. And once you learn to recognize them, you'll never look at success the same way again. The following Tuesday, Ethan walks into the office wearing a brand new luxury watch. Everyone notices. Someone grabs his wrist. Dude, that's beautiful. Another coworker asks the price. Someone else jokes. Looks like somebody got rich. Ethan laughs. You laugh too. But something feels strange. Nobody asks how much he invested. Nobody asks how much he saved. Nobody asks how much freedom he bought. The only thing anyone cares about is how expensive success looks. And without realizing it, the entire office has agreed to play the same game. A game where appearances earn applause, while discipline stays invisible. You look down at your own wrist. Nothing expensive, nothing impressive, just time. And years from now, you'll discover time was the only luxury that actually mattered. You were 24. 2 years have passed. Nothing dramatic happened. No lottery, no promotion, no disaster. Just ordinary Tuesdays, ordinary paychecks, ordinary purchases. That's how financial lives are built. Or destroyed. Not in moments. In habits. Every month. Ethan upgrades something. A newer phone. Better apartment. Luxury gym. Weekend trips. Designer clothes. None of them are crazy expensive. That's why they're dangerous. No single purchase can ruin your future. But hundreds of comfortable purchases absolutely can. You still drive the same Toyota. Every morning you park in exactly the same space. People stopped making jokes about it months ago. Now, they just assume you're struggling. One afternoon, a coworker quietly asks, "So, everything okay financially?" You smile. "Yeah." He nods politely. The conversation ends. But it doesn't leave your mind. Nobody thinks you're building wealth. They think you're falling behind. That night, you stand in front of your bathroom mirror. You ask yourself something you've never asked before. What if they're right? Not because you're broke. Because looking unsuccessful starts feeling like becoming unsuccessful. That's the part nobody warns you about. Discipline is lonely, especially when everyone around you celebrates spending. Age 26. Friday night. Office rooftop party. Music. Lights. Expensive drinks. The city glowing behind glass. Someone asks Ethan, "When are you buying the new Mercedes?" He laughs. "Soon." Everyone cheers. Then someone turns toward you. "What about you?" You shrug. "My Toyota still works." Silence. Not awkward. Worse. Disappointed. Someone forces a smile. Another changes the subject. Within seconds, you're invisible again. Driving home. The silence inside your car feels louder than the party. You grip the steering wheel. Maybe everyone else is right. Maybe success really is supposed to look expensive. You pull into your apartment. Before going upstairs, you open your phone. Luxury SUV. Monthly payment. $842. You could afford it. Technically. The button says, "Apply now." Your thumb stops above the screen. For almost a minute, you imagine Monday morning. The parking lot. Heads turning. Coworkers smiling. Respect. Recognition. Status. Then, you close the app. Not because you're stronger. Because one sentence suddenly echoes inside your head. Every payment buys today's image, with tomorrow's freedom. You don't even remember where you first heard it. But tonight, it saves you. Age 29. The economy slows. Layoffs begin. Nobody panics. Until names start disappearing. One desk. Then another. Then another. Friday afternoon. HR calls Ethan. 20 minutes later. He walks back carrying a cardboard box. Nobody speaks. The office suddenly feels smaller. You meet him outside. He tries to smile. "I'll figure something out." You believe him. Until 3 weeks later. Coffee shop. Same Ethan. Different face. No confidence. No expensive watch. He stirs cold coffee without drinking it. Then he quietly says, "I've got 6 weeks before I can't make the car payment." You don't answer. He laughs. But there's no humor left. "I spent 10 years building an image. And 6 weeks losing it." The sentence hangs in the air. Heavy. Because both of you finally understand something. Looking rich is incredibly expensive. Staying rich often looks surprisingly ordinary. If this story has made you question even one financial decision you've made, that's exactly why Dark Capital exists. Subscribe now. Because the most dangerous money mistakes don't feel like mistakes when you're making them. They feel like rewards. That evening, you drive home in your old Toyota. For the first time, you don't hate it. At a red light, you look around. Luxury SUV, pickup truck, sports car, electric sedan. Every driver looks successful. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Then a strange thought appears. Cars don't tell you who's wealthy. They tell you who wants to look wealthy. Those are two completely different people. You pull into your apartment parking lot. Your Toyota clicks as the engine cools. The paint is faded. The seats are worn. Nobody will ever take a picture of it. Nobody will admire it. But for the first time in years, you don't feel embarrassed opening the door. Because tonight, you finally understand. The most expensive thing you can ever own is an image you have to keep paying for. You are 34. 12 years have passed since your first paycheck. Same city, different life. Your Toyota now has 214,000 miles. The driver's seat has a tear. The paint has faded. The engine makes a sound you've stopped noticing. But something else has changed. Quietly. Without applause. Without anyone congratulating you. Without anyone even asking. Your investment account crosses a number you've dreamed about for years. You don't celebrate. There are no balloons. No promotion. No social media post. Just a number on a screen. That quietly bought you something money rarely buys. Options. That word changes everything. A month later, your manager calls you into his office. The company is restructuring. More responsibility. Longer hours. More travel. A bigger title. A 12% raise. 5 years ago, you would have accepted before he finished speaking. Today, you ask one question. Can I think about it? Your manager looks surprised. People don't ask that question anymore. They need the raise. You don't. That afternoon, you walk outside, sit alone on a bench, and for the first time, you realize wealth isn't measured by what you can buy. It's measured by what you can finally say no to. No to the promotion you don't want. No to the boss who thinks your weekends belong to him. No to the life everyone expects you to live. Financial freedom doesn't begin when you become rich. It begins the moment fear stops making your decisions. 3 weeks later, you meet Ethan again. Same coffee shop. Same table. Different conversation. He looks older. Not because of age. Because debt ages people faster than birthdays. His luxury SUV is gone. The expensive watch disappeared months ago. He stares into his coffee before speaking. You know what the worst part was? You stay quiet. It wasn't losing the car. It wasn't selling the watch. It wasn't moving into a smaller apartment. He finally looks up. The worst part was realizing none of those things were ever making me happy. You nod. Because you've already learned that lesson. He continues. I spent 12 years buying proof that I was successful. Instead of becoming successful. Silence. Then he asks the question that changes the entire story. How did you know? You smile. I didn't. I just got tired of renting an identity. For the first time, Ethan doesn't laugh. He writes those words on a napkin, folds it carefully, puts it inside his wallet. Maybe that single sentence will change the next 20 years of his life. Just like one small decision changed yours. Months later, Saturday morning, neighborhood park, children laughing, dogs running, families everywhere. You sit on a wooden bench drinking coffee. Nobody knows your investment account. Nobody knows your net worth. Nobody knows you could stop working years before most people your age. And suddenly, you realize something beautiful. Nobody needs to know. Because freedom isn't a performance. It's private. Real wealth is silent. Debt usually isn't. You remember the parking lot 12 years ago. The BMW. The applause. The admiration. You smile. Not because you won. Because you finally stopped playing. Somewhere right now, a 22-year-old just received their first paycheck. They're standing inside a shopping mall, looking at something expensive, thinking exactly what you once thought. I deserve this. Maybe they do. Maybe you did. But here's the question nobody asks. What if the real reward isn't buying something that makes strangers think you're successful? What if the reward is becoming the person who never needs strangers to think that at all? That's the difference. One life is spent collecting compliments. The other is spent collecting freedom. One looks rich. The other sleeps peacefully. Only one of them retires with choices. One day, people will stop remembering what car you drove, what phone you carried, what watch you wore, but you'll remember something else. The morning you woke up, looked at your bank account, looked at your calendar, and realized your time finally belonged to you. That's the richest moment most people never experience. Not because they couldn't afford it, because they spent decades trying to impress people who stopped looking after 5 seconds anyway. The price of looking rich was never the car. Never the watch, never the house. The price was the years you quietly traded away, trying to convince strangers that your life was worth admiring. The moment you stop buying appearances, you begin buying your future. And that's a purchase that compounds for the rest of your life. Before you leave, if this story changed the way you think about money, even a little, then subscribe to Dark Capital. Every week, we tell stories that most people don't hear until it's too late. Not about getting rich overnight, but about avoiding the quiet decisions that steal decades from your future. Because the most expensive financial mistake isn't losing money. It's losing years. We'll see you in the next one.